Well, we welcome you back, one and all, to the GT Cup Europe Championship for our final weekend in the 2025 season. We've arrived at the Temple of Speed here at Monza. 6 rounds soon to be concluded. We are to crown a champion this weekend. Humidity declining a little bit since the top of the hour this morning. 21-degree on track as it stands. We've now seen more track action come into the thoroughfare. Therefore, now the surface responding just in time for this GT Cup machinery making its way around on track to decide the fates of all 3 classes as we go racing twice more this weekend. Currently coming into this weekend is Ian Rodriguez, Luca Franca leading the way on 100 points as it stands, 24 points ahead of Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani. That's for the overall championship. Of course, remember 3 classes, I said, with Pro-Am classification well underway too, with Laura van den Hengel and Paul Meyer. Laura van den Hengel bidding become the first female driver to win under the GT Sport banner here in the GT Cup Europe Championship, as we now see the 911 Porsche just going for a little bit of a spin. Leandro Martins there for LMR Motorsport, just having a brief moment coming through the first chicane. As I was saying, Laura van den Hengel become the first woman to land a championship here under the GT Cup Europe banner and also the GT Sport organisation banner as well, with Davide Scanicchio, Fabio Fabini currently behind just by 11 points so far in that championship tussle. AM classification, Dieter Schweppes and Leandro Martins leading the way. We just saw that 911 Porsche having a little moment just now. 55 points against their names, 16 points ahead of H. De Mello, who currently sits second at the moment, with Cosimo Papi back further than that. But obviously it is the top 2 in that championship that we're going to be focusing on as well. But we welcome you all here to Monza. George Morgan here in the commentary box alongside me once again, Chris Stevens.
Hello, George, and yes, this could be a very important day in the championship. We could crown all 3 of our class champions in this afternoon's 50-minute race. And as we say, it's an 18-point lead for Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca when you apply the drop scores. And so basically, the ZRS pairing of Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani have to outscore this championship leading car that we're seeing on screen at the moment. And what's kind of in the Fimes team favour as well is they've got a second car for this weekend, and because they also fielded it in Barcelona, it is eligible for points. We do have a rule in GT Sport competition where if you come in for the final round, you're effectively a ghost car when it comes to scoring points. You are neither blocking nor scoring points, and that is basically to stop teams from fielding a bunch of cars for the final round and getting in their rivals' way and things like that. But because the sister car, the 93 of Matteo Levisi and Ludovico Larini, was in Barcelona, they are eligible for points this weekend. So that could play a part in proceedings, of course. Whereas the ZRS pairing are running on their own out there. But it's 16.5 minutes on the clock. Very cool conditions out there. Track temperature's been creeping up on what has been a very crisp morning here in the National Park of Monza. Paul Meyer taking the wheel of the Burgers Motorsport Porsche, run by the Hans Weiss Motorsport operation. Hans Weiss here this weekend and overseeing proceedings. And Paul Meyer trying to make it 6 pole positions in his 6 qualifying sessions that he'll have taken part in this year.
Yeah, it's at the best strike rate where it comes to qualifying, better than any other driver. Of course, every single session has gone his way, certainly the ones that he has taken part in. As a whole, as a team, obviously 50% strike rate. Obviously, in the last 10 sessions that we have had, 5 pole positions. Now we see Paul Meyer making his way down the straight. A little bit of traffic out in front, though, as we see a couple of cars now joining the action. Though this is the 22 that we're currently watching of Ludovico Longoni, also part of the Silver Cup class and looking for a big weekend himself. But like I said, they're going to need everything to go absolutely perfectly. 24 points without the applied drop score is the gap between Rodriguez, Franca and Longoni and Armani. Pietro Armani, who came into this GT Cup Europe Championship off the back of a vibrant single-seater career, taking part in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, for instance, with ART Grand Prix, then decided to move into Porsche racing and has certainly flourished. But obviously, I'm sure that the steady building blocks will be put in place. These two have managed to launch themselves into the victory side of things, taking the top step of the podium at Portimao for race 2 and Paul Ricard in race 1, but can't hold a candle really to Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca, our championship leaders. 4 wins they've managed to muster this season so far. Very nearly won a weekend. The only weekend they didn't score a victory on was Spa, their highest points gathering, 12 in race 2.
So just building up to the first proper push laps of this session. Leandro Martins keeping well out of the way. Going for back-to-back titles is that number 911 car. And of course, for Leandro Martins, set up his own race team this year. And it's been a very successful first year in this championship.
Had a tough weekend at Barcelona, though last time out. I mean, to be honest, less said about race 2, the better. Obviously, there was a few cars that fell afoul in that one, but they only managed to pull together 3 points. It was actually a rare weekend where, you know, at least, you know, on most occasions, they managed to take AM classification podiums. Barcelona actually the rare weekend where they didn't take one at all, which is
always inside the top 2 until Barcelona.
Yeah, without fail, generally. But obviously Barcelona just seemed to be a little bit of a discrepancy in what has been a near-perfect season for them. But obviously they have a great chance of netting the AM Championship in our very first race of the weekend.
And I wonder, you know, what are they going to do next year? You know, they've won back-to-back titles. It's looking very like it. They've got, 13 points over H. de Mello. So that is, well, it's only 3 points away from securing it. So we see Davide Scanicchio in the Tsunami Racing Team Porsche, sharing that car with Fabio Babini, who is being downgraded from gold to silver for next year. Now, that I don't think affects things in terms of his GT Cup, where he qualifies in the classes, but of course next year he could enter the AM classification of GT Open if he were to stay with his bronze driver in that championship, Johannes Zelger. Fabio once again on double duties with the San Marino-based team.
The driver currently on top, Diego Di Fabio. We mentioned, obviously, we do get drivers that come in, new ones that step in from time to time. Well, we've got a new team to bring you. Easy Race stepping up with Diego Di Fabio and Lorenzo Bontempelli. Di Fabio actually coming in as a racing driver coach, the Italian, and will be alongside a dental surgeon here this weekend. Of course, Lorenzo Bontempelli, Trofeo Pirelli world champion in 2006 and 2011, Italian GT3 champion, though, in 2009, and also returning to the GT Sport organisation because he was a GT Open champion back in 2011 as well. So it's also a welcome return to the Ferrari 488 Challenge at the same time, which we haven't had in a little while this season, as Di Fabio once again goes purple inside the middle sector, very nearly a whole second up on his initial time that he set prior to go to the top of the timing sheets, looking to launch himself even higher again, if that's at all possible. Halder is part of the new Halder Motorsport team that have come in this weekend as well. Di Fabio back on top in the 403.
Yeah, Lorenzo Bontempelli's experience goes all the way back to the 360 version of the Ferrari Challenge. So he's been around for a while, but Diego doing a good job, and it's our two newest teams on top at the moment. Spoke to Mike Hadler yesterday, welcomed him to the championship, obviously known as a TCR team primarily, as is Mike and Rene Paulsen as drivers, both fighting for overall and class honours respectively in TCR Spain in a couple of weeks. But
Mike Halder, former champion in TCR Spain.
Yeah, he's going for his second overall title, and Rene's going for the gentleman class honours there. But this is a relatively new thing for them to move into the Porsche Cup machinery. I think Mike knows it from Carrera Cup Germany back in the day. Of course, Porsche bringing out a new version of the Cup car, the 992.2, I think they're calling it. But it will, I don't think, quite make its way to our championship just yet. I think it's only the Super Cup and Carrera Cup Germany that are getting the new car, as we've got one car going through the gravel, which is the Ebby Motors number 23 car.
I believe that's Cosmo.
It's Paolo Giannemi.
Yeah.
So yeah, Cosmo not running solo this weekend.
No, he's got a partner. We've got Diego Di Fabio, who's currently purple as well once more. Ludovico Larini is now gone fastest in the initial, but it looks like he's about to have the time ripped away from him, and he will indeed by 3.5 tenths or so. Faster than Larini, Luca Franca, championship leader, alongside Ian Rodriguez, now pops into second, highest of silver. But remember, silver are fighting for overall. If you're in that Pro-Am, you're also fighting for class victory. There's now Paul Meyer, who has had a near-perfect record, well, has had a perfect record for qualifying, looking to continue that run, and does so. Just look at the deficit already. We're seeing the gaps float outwards to nearly a whole half a second as the Hans Weiss Motorsport team come back to a familiar sight of P1 with 9 minutes and 23 to go.
Recently wrapped up his Creventic campaign with Seb Lejoux Racing at the 24 Hours of Barcelona. And I think this is his final race weekend of the season, actually.
I descended off in style, ideally with a Pro-Am championship.
That's a lot of curve.
Talk about it.
Can absolutely monster them. Ever since they reprofiled them last year, you can just absolutely monster them like they used to back in the day before they installed all the big sausage curbs that made things a little bit more tricky. That was a lot of rear-end instability for Paul Meyer going into the first Lesmo, and I think as a result of that, he's backed out of the lap very wide.
Being answered back by Di Fabio. A bit of dust being crept up as well by the car in front of Paul Meyer right now. But Di Fabio looking to respond in kind, lost a little bit of time inside the middle sector. Obviously, Paul Meyer now 46 thousandths away from his best time. Obviously, the middle sector, I think, though, might well be scrub. We'll wait and see. Yeah, there you can see it, 2.6 seconds lost in that sector too. Longoni has gone 5th fastest, just in front of Steeners Longin. We got Nunez down in 7th as well. Stefano Zerbi pops up to 18th as well, ahead of Fortuna, who now dismisses down into 19th place. Di Fabio still up on his previous best time, and now comes into the pits, Diego Di Fabio, to have a little rethink, and I'm sure we'll be back out to try and lay down an assault with 8 minutes or so to go, as the 93 of Ludovico Larini makes his way through Lesmo 1 and soon to be Lesmo 2 at the same time. Of course, being met with the familiar sight of Davide Scanicchio and, of course, Fabio Babini's car, which is currently locked in front of him right now. Scanicchio behind the wheel this time, dropping down into 14th. And this was the moment. And, wow, it's our championship leader, Luca Franca, taking a little bit of a tumble, a small, slight visit into the Lesmo, the second Lesmo gravel trap.
How have we put so much gravel on the racetrack already? There's so much of it. Another sister car doing the same. Different colours on that car compared to Barcelona. The green trim being swapped out for the orange. But yeah, we're exploring the limits in the early stages of today's running for
you can really
GT
see
Cup.
it on the escape of Ascari.
Oh, it's pretty much everywhere. Like, it was in the second apex and the third, and there's been a bunch of it outside Lesmo 2 now as well. So there's going to be a narrow line that's being created there already. Diego Di Fabio back into pit lane already. Not sure if that is for any kind of change or whether he's just done for now, as Davide Scanicchio allows the 93 to pull through, and that is Larini driving it at the moment. And Paul Meyer's still fastest.
Personal best in the middle sector for Mike Halder as well at the moment, 36.921, so it's improving on this run. The first sector was a little bit disappointing. Gianluca Diorgi as well, also finding a personal best inside sector 2, but it's a 34.1 from H. De Mello as well, who's looking to creep into the higher echelons of the order. He's currently leading the AM classes. Nemi now goes into 12th, and AM P2. Halder now moves up into 5th. And Lance Aiden gets planted down into 7th, and Longoni just in behind Halder right now. That sprinkling of gravel still very much there for the drivers to certainly hustle themselves over. Lars Zanen creeps back up into 6th place, just behind Halder. As we now watch the 44 storm down through towards Curva Alboreto of H. De Mello. Still leading the AM class at the moment as Lars Zanen goes 5th fastest. Halder now, I think it might have just had his time deleted, hence why he's just dropped down to 9th as Stevens Longin comes into the pit. So see how much H. De Mello can improve as we take a look at a replay. H. De Mello does pop into 9th fastest, 93, taking an excavation into the Lesmo 2 gravel.
Oh, that is a big rear end twitch in the middle of Lesmo 2. And look at that, out of shot, out of mind.
Back in again.
Back in again, yes. Yeah, seen more cars in the gravel than on the racetrack at the moment, George. It's astonishing pushing in the early stages
here. It seems
here.
that Larini's trying to hustle because obviously there are other cars around that are improving. Paul Meyer's put in the biggest improvement yet inside that first sector. Has gone purple once more with a 33.6. So hold your phones, folks. Paul Meyer looking to extend the gap and also having a brief moment in the gravel trap. As you can see, found time in that first sector, but has he lost it all? Coming through that middle sector with a trip through Lesmo 2. We'll wait and see. Obviously, very soon we'll cross the Sector 2 into Sector 3 stripe. He is still up on his previous best time, so I'd imagine he'll keep going as he makes his way through Ascari and then down the next straight before reaching Curva Alboreto. Of course, it's a fairly long run down towards the final corner at turn 11 before you then make your way around a somewhat tight bend before you then light up the long home straight. Paul Meyer once again chasing another pole position. Halder moves into 5th fastest once more. We'll be hoping that this one doesn't get deleted this time. He's currently 3rd of those in the Pro-Am class so far. DeFabio in his first weekend also going 2nd fastest in Pro-Am and also overall. But Meyer now crossing the line does improve once again, near 0.8 of a second between the top two, and that is a big clap from Laura van den Hengel, teammate, of course, of Paul Meyer.
My Dutch needs a little work. Trying to listen in there, but that is a great effort from Paul Meyer. 4 minutes left on the clock and 0.8 of a second to Diego DeFabio's easy race run Ferrari. It's a Porsche Ferrari battle at the head of the field once again. Been a while since we've seen one of those. Crucially, in terms of the championship, it's Luca Franca 3rd, but Mongoni down in 7th, and they need to outscore their championship rivals, and that was Luca Franca getting very sideways in the middle of Lesmo 2.
He's done that almost at a moment. I mean, obviously, I think he was a little bit fortunate on that occasion not to tread too far into the gravel, but obviously we saw him actually go fully in it earlier on. He certainly wasn't the first, and I'm sure he won't be the last with the way we've been seeing things happen. But
you can hear the gravel skipping off the bodywork.
Yeah, I mean, these are drivers that are ultimately committing to every single apex. You can see he has lost a significant amount of time after making that little, well, taking that aggressive line through Lesmo 2. Got Franca now making his way around the final corner now. Andrea Galli moves into 11th fastest. Personal best inside the first sector, but major time loss for Franca in the middle. He's going to look to try and go again, though. I'm sure we've got 2 minutes and 34 before we then reach the checkered flag. Personal best in the final sector for Franca, despite having the mistake in the middle. No improvements, obviously, as now we see the car, I believe that's the car of Peter Furter, I think, rejoining Diego Nunes behind the wheel on this occasion. Furter will be taking over for qualifying 2 tomorrow. But Paul Meyer untouched up at the very top, though Diego DeFabio has brought the gap down just by a little bit. It's just over 6.5 tenths now. It was 9 tenths earlier.
So DeFabio starting to come back at Paul Meyer. He's still out there on the racetrack, is Paul, as Luca Franca tries to put his car on the front row of the grid. Fimes team coming back to where they're the sort of predecessor to this team, which, of course, in its first year of competition, made its sort of debut. Again, he's really struggling with that Lesmo 2, but big association with Black Dome, which has got a big presence in the paddock here this weekend, coming to the end of their first year of competition and trying to wrap it up with a championship. But I don't think it's going to be pole position for the 91 crew, especially if they keep going that sideways. Steen is long in, putting in a good effort there in the Pro-Am Q1 track racing car. Currently 4th in that category, in 8th position overall. Oh, Paul's out of the car. He's done. Finished for the session. Well, and he knows it's done already.
He's magical number 6 there, Paul.
They do it every single weekend. He gets out of the car early and celebrates. And I just think, one of these days it's going to get ripped away from him. But that was a barrel load of opposite lock.
Big swapper. It's not the first time we've seen that from Luca Franca here in this very session alone. And
it looks better on board, didn't it?
Well, it did. Yeah, it did. I've got to say credit to him, though, for the effort. But look at this. From the 21 R01 Racing, Camel Berrien for the Romanian contingent in the AM class, just having a turn tail
He's still there, actually, because there's yellow flags out at turn 2. So way too much curb, way too much for the rear to handle. Green flag's now waving at turn 2, so all is clear. Just under 10 seconds left on the clock. Who is on for an improvement? Sebastian Fortuna moving up to 7th position in the AM category.
Luciano Privitello also putting in 2 personal bests, but certainly not anything that's going to disrupt the front end. Leandro Martins, though, with a 34.255, so therefore showing green inside that first sector.
Oh, and Franco getting caught up there behind the number 9 into Lesmo 2, so that's Andrea Gali that he had to try and get past. It wasn't an improvement in the first sector for Luca anyway, and it's definitely not going to be an improvement now.
I think you'll just be relieved that he didn't have another moment going over the curb coming through Lesmo 2, to be honest. I mean, that was a cleaner run, but 2.8 lost already based on the fastest time of Paul Meyer so far. But
Stina's Longin splitting the 2 Fimes cars with 4th position overall. That's a really great effort from the Q1 Track Racing car. Of course, it's the silver class driver in that car.
Yeah,
caught up with his teammate Nicolas Salins yesterday, who'd lost his wedding ring.
Oh,
and I do hope he's found it, otherwise he's going to be an awful lot of trouble when he gets back home.
Yeah, obviously I think a difficult race could be the least of his issues, I think, come the end of the weekend, if that's the case. But the checkered flag is now out. Paul Meyer celebrating 6 out of 6 in terms of qualifying visits. What an astonishing performance from the Hans Wies Motorsport team. Burgers Motorsport, of course, as they're also known as. And Paul Meyer will be absolutely thrilled, as will Laura van den Hengel, 1 step closer to clinching that Pro-Am Championship title. It's 11 points between them at the moment. And Paul Meyer, I think he likes it, Chris.
He has not stopped smiling, has he? Pretty much all season. It's been a great effort for Paul Meyer, the undisputed qualifying king in GT Cup Europe.
No question about it. And now it's all about converting that pole position to victory and try and lift aloft that Pro-Am Championship title to end what has been a magical 2025 season. They haven't been too far away from taking overall results as well in the past. They've had close calls there, but let's run through the results of qualifying 1. Paul Meyer finishes ahead of Diego De Fabio, who comes in his first start for Easy Race and plants a Ferrari back on the front row. Luca Franca, championship leader overall, sits in 3rd for Fimes team. Stina's Longin in 4th, ahead of Ludovico Larini, part of Silver Class. Mike Halder in his first weekend in 6th place ahead of Lars Zanen, and Paolo Nemi, highest AM and also 8th inside the top 10. Great performance from the AB Motors team. Ludovico Longoni in 9th, Diego Nunez down in 10th place for LMR Motorsport ahead of H. de Mello and then Andrea Galli as well. Giacomo Diobergia in 13th place, then Gianluca Giorgi in 14th. Then we have Leandro Martins in 15th ahead of Davide Schinicchio, Nicholas van Dierendonk and Sebastian Fortuna. Then Camel Perrion ahead of Stefano Zerbi, who sits in 20th place in the timing tower. And then we have Luciano Privitello ahead of Annie Frosio and Riccardo Romagnoli towards the rear. So as we now take a stunning look at the circuit of Monza, we'll now run through our top 3. Luca Franca, of course, fastest overall this season in terms of points. But of course, we'll have to hold on to 3rd here this time as we go racing later on this afternoon. Diego De Fabio in his first start lines up on the front row, but could not quite hold a candle to the man who has nestled in the Salacious 6. A truly remarkable performance from Paul Meyer once again. Fastest with a 1:47.136. So we now look ahead to racing action this afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us. But until later on, it's goodbye.